Hi, I'm Ron Landis. Welcome to my studio.
All right, so we've been doing a little bit of a cleanup on this press. We're kind of resisting doing a full rebuild, just kind of cleaning it up and getting it ready to make sure it's functional. And once we get it functional and we know that it's all operational, in the future when we have a window, then maybe we'll tear it all the way down and do a paint job and maybe some of the more intricate things that need to be done. But for now, we've kind of just started by disassembling all the stuff that was on the top. There was a tabletop and a bunch of what I guess you could refer to as cowling or covering that was around all of some of the mechanicals and most of the top here. We'll take that off. It's aluminum. We'll, with just a hand grinder, we'll clean up the surface with some Scotch-Brite or wire wheel, something like that. Get that all cleaned up. Take some dings and dents out from where other people have messed it up. But it's pieces like this hood that covers up the mechanicals of the door. So we'll get that all cleaned up. Like I said, eventually we can get this stuff painted, but for now, just make sure it's all functional. We've already taken apart the coining chamber. So I took off all of the upper die holder assembly and I removed the entire bottom die assembly, and I cleaned up the edges, surface ground all of this in order to make sure everything was riding square. We are trusting that the original manufacturer is still square with the cylinder itself, but we took the die plate off the bottom and surface ground all that, and we'll show you little clips of that. That was done. This upper die holder was kind of interesting because in order to make sure that where the die sits, you can see that it's, it goes inside there. You have to make sure that that surface is parallel with everything else, not this outer surface. So we just use a couple little tricks to make sure that we were grinding everything in reference to that inner surface so that everything stays parallel all the way down. We'll put that all back assembled and we should be able to turn it on pretty soon. We also just top to bottom clean. I generally just use soapy water. It works best, Simple Green. It cuts real good. There's some areas where you use some brake cleaner where you can't get in quite as well. And I do use some like engine degreaser and stuff like that in some of the tougher areas. But for the most part, Simple Green soapy water works really well. As long as you dry it off really quick and cuts through the grease. One of the things that we found right away is that the control panel and the control module and all that was pretty wonky. When it first arrived, there was a start-stop switch connected to the motor, which we automatically assumed was the main on-off button. So I actually had it on there. This is a fitting for the electronics where it came into the control box and out to this switch. And so I pulled it off and got it cleaned up. I rewired it so that I could relocate it because I was moving. I didn't want to have to reach into the machine to turn it on and off. And as I was rebuilding it, I noticed it's a thermal fuse in there, and I noticed one of them was blown and it was looking all wanky. And I'm looking online and the thing is totally obsolete. You can't find this starter switch anymore, and I was worried I was going to have to source a new starter switch, yada yada yada. Then I got to looking at it and I realized there was no wires coming out of it back into the motor, and I realized that it had already been made non-functional, non-operational on this press by someone else, and there's a starter switch inside the control panel. So what I was able to do is actually just take the whole thing off, and now I didn't have to worry about sourcing any of those parts. So I took that all off, routed the electrical box. This was all disassembled. We put that all back together and tucked it in place real nice, and it'll fit behind the cowl real well. But it was nice that we didn't have to repurchase. Sometimes you can find these on eBay really good, but this time I was out of luck. But thankfully my luck reignited when we realized that this box wasn't doing anything anyway. Maybe I'll reassemble it and put it on eBay. The other thing we noticed is that it came with a radiator. This machine was probably in high production especially judging by some of the controls that are in it. And a radiator could be useful if you were putting this thing in operation for, you know, 8, 10, 12 hours a day, which our capacity isn't meant for that. We do a lot of stuff by hand. So what I did is, instead of having this clunky thing, which was actually some kind of add-on people had done at some point, it had a box fan attached to it. It was pretty, it didn't look good, that's for sure. It obviously was operational. So all I did was actually remove all the fittings, pull the radiator off, and then using a couple fittings, this is the in for the radiator and out for the radiator, and I actually just reassembled it. I haven't got tightened down yet because I'm gonna actually strap it in here. And we're gonna run it without the radiator for now. It will not be a problem for us. We will be able to see if it is, because there is a thermometer that they installed on the back of the machine. So I will be able to check like throughout the day and see where the temperature is, the hydraulic fluid. But honestly, I have no reason to believe that we're gonna actually need that radiator. And if we do, we've already got it, and we'll just put it back on there and we'll strap it in, and it won't be a problem. But for now, this will make it a lot cleaner and everything will tuck away a lot better. So these are some of the, you know, some of the pieces of kind of like, this is the one that goes in front of the door. This is actually the door latch. So we'll, you know, degrease it, put a Scotch-Brite or a wire wheel on it, get it nice and bright again. And we'll be able to reassemble all that. They actually, whoever did this wouldn't have been part of the original machine, but they did a really good job with these pieces in particular. So I'm definitely gonna reuse those. The pieces that came out of the coining chamber, not sure yet if I'm going to utilize these, because we have to make an ejection system, because we are going to do some collar striking. And so I don't know if I'm going to modify this ring or if I'm going to use something completely different. I haven't made that decision yet, but I do have that and I know that it fits. So there's a good chance that I could just like port it or something to where I could, you know, run my ejector using this piece. We'll see about that yet. I haven't made that decision. The big muffler, that was some kind of ejection tube. They probably were running something somewhat automated. I'm not real sure because the location of it wasn't near the coining chamber. It was like off to the side. I don't know if they were coining and then somebody was like dropping it in the hole. I don't know. But it's straight up muffler parts from the muffler shop, like straight up. So I'm not even gonna use that. We don't do anything like that where we need a tube to have ejected coins go down. Everything we do is hand fed, hand released, hand inspected. So I don't see any reason to put that back on. We did purchase some new material to create a new top because the material that was on the top there was just, I mean, it's okay. I do the same. I'm also going to use plywood. I did get they have a plywood, it has a thermal sheet on the side, so that'll be cool. You can see how battered and beat up the original piece was, so I had no desire to reuse any of that. But I am going to use this as a template and pretty much just redo exactly what it has, because I already know it fits. So I'm never one to reinvent the wheel. Very monkey see, monkey do. Although I'd like to finish probably a little better. I did get some aluminum weld to clean up the corners. There's aluminum trim that goes around this and around that. I'm actually going to weld with that aluminum rod just to clean the corners and make it look like it's one piece. This is the other section of the base of the coining chamber. On a lot of this stuff, we use just use navel jelly. Stuff stinks, by the way. I don't know if anybody out there uses that stuff. It works really well, though. The only thing I don't like about it is that it leaves your parts gray. Like this was super rusty, and it, like this, it looked like that, just covered in that pitted rust. And now it's, there's still some pitting, but the rust is gone, but it leaves this weird gray color as opposed to, something shiny. So I'll go through and I'll hit that with a wire wheel or a Scotch-Brite. And this is what I was saying, I haven't decided yet if I'm going to use that or not.
because what's cool is this lower piece has got these T-bolt channels here. So I can, whatever I utilize or whatever I use, I can utilize those slots if I want.
So one of the cool things that happens when you buy a used coining press, and this never fails, and I have rebuilt, I don't know, I'm probably, personally I've rebuilt like 4 coining presses now. And every time there's always stuff trapped inside, you know, if you clean it deep enough. And this is a bunch of the stuff that I found inside this machine. They did some standard token type stuff, like gaming tokens. There's a grocery cart token for $1. This is a Canadian press too. I can tell by all the stuff that was struck. Here's a push cart token for 25 cents. Another, let's see, Fort Road Bingo. Oh, that's the same one. Oh no, see, there's a shared reverse. Oh, not shared reverse. Check it. Variety. Blanks. There's always blanks that are unstruck. This is a cool unstruck blank. Will be a medallion. Just a square. Bimetallic stuff, which is pretty neat. Fort Francis, Ontario. With a fish. That one's pretty cool. Tigers. McNally High School. Celebration 2008. So that's been in that press for a while now. Saskatchewan. And then the rest of these are, oh, this one got bent. Oh, it's the same as that Tigers one. This one got trapped in there somewhere. These are cool though, because this is what's called a strike and trim, which is similar to what we do with our picks when we're forming our picks. So that they'll strike the blank, and you can see there's a reverse on it. And these are probably locator pins for when they lock this into like a hanging ribbon or whatever they're using to mount this. These pins locate it. But that piece, you can see the flashing that happens outside of those. So those go back into a punch and die where they trim off that excess. This is a Alberta School of Business token that's clearly a strike and trim, which is odd for that size and style of token. So that must have been mounted too. I mean, that's one of the reasons you do that, is because you're going to mount it. But still, I'd be curious to know what the rest of this looks like finished, because it seems easier to strike that with just a uniface on the back. But these are really cool. Minister of the Environment, and this other one says Fortis et Liber. Not sure, but those are sick. With the coat of arms, it's pretty neat. GC Mint tells you who they are, who own that press. This is cool. That's a famous A&W. Isn't that the logo for the root beer? No. Tiny though. It's kind of neat. Then 2 of these. See, one's off center, so that would have been a reject anyway. Looks like that one was probably a reject too. A little too close to the edge. Lori something. GCM. David Thompson High grad. Volunteer Reynolds, Alberta. That's pretty cool, huh? I got a weird collection of stuff that I've pulled out of presses. Did a nice HME K360 that came out of the US Mint, and I got a bunch of nickel blanks and quarter blanks and penny blanks. Those are pretty fun. That's probably the most valuable stuff that I've pulled out of a press, but kind of cool, man. Little coin collection. Sell it, pay for the press. Not likely. That's really nice. Ready for the update? I was able to give it a oil change, so we got all the old oil out. And it actually looked pretty good. It was still all golden honey colored, which is good. Which is, there wasn't any signs of breakdown of material. It was super, like clear and viscous, and it looked nice. There's no burnout or anything apparent in the oil. Fill it back up with regular old AW32, which is just a standard hydraulic oil. We don't run it nearly enough to use anything specialty, and I don't see any deterioration in the seals or anything like that. So got the guts all cleaned up that way. If something is wrong, we can see it right away. A lot of times it's kind of a important aspect of maintenance, especially preventive maintenance, is keeping your machinery clean. A lot of times you'll walk into a machine shop or any place like that, and you'll see just filth covering the machines and stuff like that. And if you have a spring and oil leak or something like that, it makes fault tracing extremely difficult. So one of the most basic forms of preventive maintenance is keeping things clean. So that way, if you spring an oil leak or a spring pops out or whatever, you're able to, you know, it makes fault tracing and troubleshooting that much easier. You can see, you can find a part if it falls, you can see where oil's dripping because everything's clean and the oil is dripping. It seems simpler and sounds more simple than it is. It's really an important part of preventive maintenance. And then I got the power ran properly. I've kind of got it sitting where I want it, and I've got the power run up to my wall here. We've still got to run the power supply. We don't have three-phase from the power company here. We run it off a three-phase converter. So I still have to run, I'm going to tie into the line that we already have running across the top. I'll put a junction box up in the ceiling, and we'll just run off of that. And for now, what with everything else going on, that's about all I've done on this so far. Okay, we've got the press powered up. I've got it bouncing up and down, so I just want to do a quick demonstration so that you can see how it functions going up and down. Inside the coining chamber, what I've done is I have a hardened block in here. And I put that block in here in order to stop the press, because the hydraulic press will go until there's pressure. There's some fail-safes in the back that I could utilize, and I will once we get it in full production. But for now, this will stop the press from stroking too far. So that's all you see in here. There's no pointing dies or anything yet. I'm going to turn it on, and it'll power up, and I'll turn it into a regular stroke. And remember, I still have a bunch of the cowling and everything goes over there, and that's where the latch for the door is. And so there's an actuator, a valve that actually operates and from the controls to create the stroke from the door opening and closing. So you'll see that all in operation. And here we go, real quick. We'll start the motor. It's actually quieter than the phase converter. And it's running now, so we'll turn it on to stroke. And what you would do here at this point is you would place a blank in there for it to be coined. You would close the door. There's going to be a little latch here that keeps the door closed.